On the 90th floor of London's Shard, a lavish annual meeting for an energy giant devolved into a living hell. 300 hostages were trapped behind a glass curtain wall. The radical group Green Fang, citing anti-corruption efforts, was abducted by a masked extremist during a stalemate in negotiations. He vowed to awaken the world with blood. This film is inspired by the confrontations between environmental groups and corporations in Europe in 2024. Leah, a former sniper who retired from the military due to PTSD, was rappelling from the rooftop to clean windows. Suddenly, at night, a group of men wearing green masks shot and killed all the staff in the control room. While carrying the bodies away, they touched the elevator. Leah's basket stopped rising, and she thought her colleagues were joking. Members of the group began to take over the control room, inserting data drives and hacking into the building's security system. For an expert, this was a simple task. An energy tycoon was giving a speech. Only a select few can control the energy resources of an entire country, even the world. The upper class uses their power and wealth to compete for resources, while the lower class can only protect their own interests in the few places they have. A masked man walked among the crowd. He took the psychedelic bottle thrown by a companion and slammed it against the wall. The members of this organization were wearing gill respirators, and they simultaneously triggered other psychedelic bottles. All the wealthy and high-ranking politicians began to have difficulty breathing. The scene was in chaos, and they collapsed in an instant. The fat man also collapsed on the bed. Leah saw a strange scene from the window. The curtain fell. She looked back into the bedroom. The whole family had collapsed on the floor. The man was called Thor. He had autism and was Leah's older brother. Seeing this, he quickly fled. He hid in a room, blocking the crack in the door with a towel. Even then, masked members of the organization began putting gill respirators on the politicians and businessmen. This organization had been planning this for a long time. There were pistols hidden in the refrigerator. The control room reported that all personnel were unconscious. There were many high-ranking politicians inside. It turned out that this was an Earth Environmental Revolution organization. Members had blocked the elevators and all floor doors. All communications were jammed and blocked, and no further transmissions would be made. What alarm! They suddenly realized one person was missing from their phone calls. That person was none other than the wealthy man's younger brother. Leah climbed up the cable, only to discover a horrifying scene. An environmentalist broke into a room and put a gill respirator on the unconscious fat man. Just then, the fat man leaned against the glass and saw Leah outside. He cried out for help. Because of the interference from the respirator, he didn't attract the attention of the masked killer. Leah tried to stop the fat man from exposing himself, but he, having given up resistance, was pushed away by the radicals. Watching all this, Leah wanted to get out of this place as soon as possible. She cried out. She called for help downstairs, but it was all in vain. Leah then tore the elevator's cord, hoping to see if it could be raised or lowered by connecting it to the power cord. However, it was no use. Unable to ascend, Leah slid down again, where she discovered an even more shocking scene. Everyone at the party was either lying on the ground or tied up and restrained. This environmental revolutionary organization wasn't after money or life. They simply wanted to expose the evil deeds of the politicians and businessmen who stood on the shoulders of the working people. The politicians and businessmen thought the environmental activist had no evidence, but they projected it directly onto a large screen. Energy companies were arbitrarily discharging sewage, illegally felling trees, and all the environmental propaganda in the promotional video is empty talk. Members of an environmental organization gather evidence, preparing to expose their environmental destruction to the world. However, the woman they capture is brutally murdered. This doesn't earn them any attention from the media or the government. Instead, the company's stock price soars. This radical environmental revolutionary organization wants these political and business leaders to confess their crimes, allowing the truth to spread widely and exposing their crimes to the world. By then, the company's stock will be worthless. Just meet their demands, and they'll be released. But if they escape, these people would definitely not let anyone go. Suddenly, Sander picked up the bottle, held the rich man down, and shoved it hard. His frantic action startled everyone, and even if the organization's leader tried to stop him, it was too late. Leah took out a glass cleaner and rubbed it on the glass. She lit it with a lighter, and it instantly caught fire, attracting the attention of the crowd below. That was Leah's distress signal. The control room had already received an alarm. Someone outside the building window had called for help. She informed the boss that trouble was brewing, and he immediately arranged for Sander to deal with Leah. Taking advantage of her unpreparedness, the fat man hid in a room. But he was soon found by the gang's leader. He was about to call for help when 2 shots were fired from outside, breaking down the door. The leader kicked the door open, but the fat man tried to resist and grabbed the gun. The clumsy fat man, with his hands tied, was beaten by the leader. Sander quickly found Leah. Leah discovered that the person who had come to the window was her colleague who cleaned the building. She could never have imagined that the person who cleaned with her all day was actually a member of this radical organization. Sander directed the control room to get Leah upstairs. Leah knew the consequences of going upstairs were unimaginable, and she also had to save her autism brother. So she came up with the idea of using a screwdriver to jam the lifter. Stabbing one end, the other end continued to rise, losing balance. Things changed with the appearance of Sander. The leader didn't want to kill, but the radical Sander revealed his true motives. He wanted to become the leader of the organization. He wanted to usurp the throne. The leader was shot in the side. At this moment, a member arrived. Sander offered 2 choices, submission or death. He chose the latter. All those who supported the leader were either accused or forced to choose. The result was obvious. The leader's supporters were all shot. The boss looked at the dead member, grief-stricken. Sander threw the boss out the window, and he landed right on the hanging basket. Crazy with the elation of his success, Sander shot the fat man in the thigh. Leah looked at the pistol on the hanging basket, and just as she was about to grab it, she lost her balance. Leah carefully took the pistol and checked the ammunition, a routine procedure for a former soldier. She turned and saw Thor behind her. She was relieved to see that her brother was all right. Before she could say anything, Sander suddenly returned. Sander used Thor as a threat. Leah thought the police car downstairs was arresting Sander, but Sander, cunning, called the police himself. He told Leah to shoot downstairs, threatening her with the unconscious female colleague. Leah had no choice but to compromise. As a former sniper, Leah's marksmanship was beyond description. She wouldn't hurt anyone, but she was still being targeted by the police sniper. Any unusual movement would result in her being shot. Leah dared not move, and could only plead not to be shot. It was Sheriff Neela who approached. After investigating the situation, she had ascertained the truth. She knew that Leah had fired at the people below and hadn't harmed anyone. Based on her years of experience, she was certain that this matter was more complex than just the surface. At this point, a transfer of 30 million yuan from a wealthy man's account to Leah's made Neela nervous, further skeptical of the truth. Therefore, she didn't want the speed squad to take immediate control of the situation. Leah cautiously approached the body. She simply wanted to reach her phone and call the police. She wanted to make it clear to them that she had nothing to do with it. Thor watched helplessly as his sister dangled in midair. Sheriff Neela wanted to lower Leah, but Leah was determined to rescue Thor, who was trapped in the building. However, Sheriff Neela ignored Leah's request. Meanwhile, all the politicians and businessmen began confessing their crimes, all of which would be recorded and stored. Sander had his men wear pulse detonators on him. If a pulse was not detected for 5 seconds, all the bombs would instantly detonate. Anyone who did such a thing was either insane or incredibly courageous. Sander removed the pulse detonator, terrifying his men. This is pure madness. The men stepped back and looked at Sander. Sheriff Neela contacted Sander to negotiate. He told the police not to attempt to attack the building. If he removed the pulse detonator from his hand for 5 seconds, the entire building would explode. He also wanted to publicize the crimes of all the political and business leaders and put them on trial. A rapid response team approached the building and was spotted on Sander's surveillance footage. Sander gave Sheriff Neela 5 seconds to evacuate. Thinking they could hide behind a car, the rapid response team happened to be hiding a bomb in that car, which exploded instantly. Sheriff Neela told Leah that Sander's organization was using a control room to record all company data and documents, and she hoped Leah could enter the control room to help the police with some tasks. Suddenly, a bomb went down the building. Leah was desperate and had no choice but to crawl to the other side. Then, like Spider-Man, she clung to the window. She hoped that Sheriff Neela would have the sniper shoot at the glass so that she could break it and enter the building. Meanwhile, the female assassin was approaching. The glass suddenly shattered, and it was Thor who saved Leah. When the assassin arrived, Leah and Thor had already vanished. On learning of Leah's escape, Sander acted frantically, holding the gun to himself, to his own jaw, terrifying everyone. Leah and Thor were still fleeing, with the assassin in hot pursuit. After Leah calmed Thor, she distracted the assassin. The killer cautiously approached the door and, just as he was about to open it, Leah kicked him away. A desperate struggle ensued between them. Even though Leah was skilled enough to throw the killer downstairs, she was helpless against the killer's pistol. At that moment, Thor screamed, releasing the grenade in his hand. Leah dodged instantly, ducking behind cover. The killer was instantly blown away. The woman reviewed the video recorded by Sander and learned a shocking secret. Sander, a maniac, was about to blow up the entire building, and she herself did not want to die so early. However, she was also being controlled and needed to find a way to escape. The next second, she was shot by the gunman as she ran downstairs. The killer was about to fire a second shot when Leah, who had arrived, shot him dead. Leah successfully entered the control room. Thor was a computer enthusiast who enjoyed invading official systems and was a hacker by profession. Thor quickly completed copying all the evidence and took the data disk. Leah tried to attract Sander's attention. Leah successfully dispatched one assassin. The other assassin, looking at the member lying on the ground, approached and felt for a pulse. A moment later, the police also successfully entered the building. They killed the guards and secured the situation. The police stared in shock at the scene before them. All the hostages were strapped to explosives, so many human bombs, enough to destroy the entire building. Leah approached Sander, but Sander refused to consider himself defeated. He still had the pulse controller on his wrist. Knowing Leah couldn't shoot, he suddenly attacked Leah. A scuffle ensued between the two, neither of them caring about their former friendship. They were determined to kill each other. During the fight, Leah seized the opportunity to grab the pulse controller. Sander grabbed Leah by the neck and threw her over his shoulder. Leah picked up the broken glass, cut the rope, and kicked Sander down. Sander, however, grabbed the rope and didn't fall. As he struggled to death, Leah gave Sander the finger. The Cleaners uses 90 thrilling minutes of high-altitude action to rip open the gray area between capitalism and environmental protection. It's more than just an action film. It's a mirror reflecting the ills of modern society. When justice is taken to extremes, redemption may begin with the most humble perspective. Leah searches for Thor and is relieved to see him safe. Ultimately, Thor, anonymously, exposes the evils of the political and business world.